I remember I sent you an email pretty early on in this project, and I said, how would you feel about a fugue? And you said, oh, us Lutherans love fugues. And I was like, great, we're good to go then.
Welcome. My name is Janaea Robison, and I'm the Artistic Director for the National Lutheran Choir. And we're thrilled to be joined today by composer Hans Bridger Heruth and lyricist Brian Newhouse. We commissioned them both for 3 songs of healing that are the centerpiece of our winter and tour program. I think it's would be interesting to hear just a little bit about how we connected you two together.
Yeah, this was a year ago in the fall, the All Saints program,
right,
that NLC did, and I just went to listen. I was just an audience member, bought a ticket, walked in, and it was just a great concert. But the highlight for me was hearing a piece that I'd never heard before by a composer I'd never heard his name before, and was just bowled over by what I'll call the voice, and not just the voices of the choir, but the compositional voice. And I said, who is this Hans guy? I'm just like, tell me about him. Would he ever want to work with a living lyricist? And Janaea, right away, you said, oh, I can put you together. I remember, being so happy when you said, yeah, NLC would love to do a commission Hans.
It's interesting to be able to work with 2 individuals on a commission of, okay, well, what can NLC do? What do we want? And then how do we kind of go from there?
Instead of one piece on healing, what if we broke it up into 3, into body, mind, spirit? And you right away said, let's do that.
Yeah.
So that freed me up very quickly to think about, these different parts of the human animal, and how each one can get broken, how we present when they are broken, and how they might be healed, or how we want healing. And then Hans and I had a conversation along those lines, and you thought that would work for your perspective too, Hans.
Immediately when I saw your writing for this project, I was just thrilled. I was so excited to be able to set it to music. And I was familiar with your text before through having sung many choir pieces that you'd written the poetry before, but to actually now finally get to sit down with poetry of yours and make it my own, it was exciting.
How do you start to craft that into something musical?
Reading these poems did on a miniature scale, the different movements that you would have in 3-movement instrumental work. The first is a little bit more academic. We have the fugue in there. The second is this beautiful, slow, lyrical movement. And the third, it's more referencing popular music. So, in the 3rd movement of this piece, it's a bit like a folk tune or a hymn. There's such a difference between poetry as writing, poetry as prosody, versus lyric poetry. They're not always both conducive to setting a poem to music. As you said when you were reading the poetry, Janaea, how it was like music, and that's the kind of poetry that is really such a joy to set, is just already so evocative and so beautiful and so musical with the way that the lines are set out. It's so easy then to map that to a melodic line, to hear the harmonies.
Because, Hans approaches this as a singer himself and as a composer. I approach the writing as a singer myself. As I write these things, every single line, every single word, I think, how will this be in the throat? How will this be in the mouth? How will this be to be sung? And you would not believe the stacks of paper I've got for stuff that just like, no, you don't want to sing that. No. that just won't speak as a sung line. So I think of these very much as lyrics, and if they have a poetic quality to them, that's secondary. But I really approach them as these have to be beautiful in the mouths of singers. So the idea, body, mind, spirit, 3 pieces. And I just began thinking about how frail this machine that we all inhabit, the human body, is, and how when stuff goes wrong, it takes up our entire world and worldview, and just thinking about the fragility of the human body. So I started to think about what creatures are also like us, that are fragile. And right away I went to the image of a bird and how fragile their wings are, and how tenuous their life is, living outdoors with these frail bodies all the time. And so I just started thinking about a bird as a metaphor for us and this body. And so the voice of this first text is that of a bird. Look high in the deepest blue. My flock sings here beyond your sight. This is our home, and we raise our young in the stars. But the stripping wind found us, scattered and lashed us, tore us as leaves from November trees. No one escaped the crushing earth. Pain breaks as flame in the bone. Who will come? Come with cool water. Who will come? Come hands soft as snow. Who will come? Come furious with love. Look high in the deepest blue, my flock sings here beyond your sight. This is our home, and we raise our young in the stars.
There's so many things in Brian's poetry that I was able to relate to a lot of different interesting compositional ideas. To me, it was so fun for me as a composer to go through and do a set of pieces like this. I remember I sent you an email pretty early on in this project, and I said, how would you feel about a fugue? And you said, us Lutherans love fugues. And I was like, great, we're good to go then. And you know, I hear this opening as it's like this gentle prayer. I think about we raise our young in the stars. I mean, that's such a beautiful line already about thinking the flight of birds and how they soar up in the sky as we're looking up. But also I think in the stars, you know, it's something so distant. It's really about thinking about the future.
The second movement is titled Mind.
What I am going for here, how alone it feels when you're trapped in your mind. It could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be any number of things. But something about breaking a bone in your arm is quite public. I mean, you're going to get a cast on that, and everybody's going to know that you broke a bone. But when you have a situation in your mind that will not let you go, that's a very solitary experience. And how we are desperate for someone to join us in that loneliness. And above everything else is just to listen to where I'm at in this lonely echoing silo that I'm in. Listen to my silence. I would make words gather, but they scatter as shards of shattered glass. Listen, part the clouded pools, cold, starless pools, and reach for what waits, what aches in me for light. Walk with me, my path of shadows that circles and circles without end. Where is rest? Where is healing? Where is home? Listen with your heart. May kindness carry all I cannot say. Listen to my silence.
Hans, you did some really interesting things compositionally in this piece.
The piece opens with sort of this murmuring, repeated ends on pitch in the choir. Reading this poem, I thought to myself, it's sort of this gentle murmuring to yourself. Compositionally, musically, it also sets up a really nice, gentle texture that isn't necessarily harmonizing the melody lines. It still flushes out the texture a little bit, but also with this theme of silence, I use a lot of rests in between these segmented phrases. When that texture sort of drops out and you're left alone with this silence, there's no music happening. I hope it'll give the audience pause. I think it'll catch them by surprise a little bit, but also hopefully give them a little bit of time to reflect about what they've just heard. This phrase, and reach for what waits, what aches for me in light. I have this, it's quite a long crescendo, and it slowly and slowly and slowly rises until we get to this big chord on light. To me, that seems, this growing hope, but also this growing plea that someone might hear you.
The final one is Spirit.
There's a little story that I'll tell before then. This one really is attached to a story. One of the masterpieces of 20th century choral literature is the Requiem setting by Herbert Howells, British composer. And he wrote it around the time that his little boy died of meningitis. This is in the 1930s. And it is a gorgeous, deeply moving setting. And it was never performed for 30 or 40 years. He put it in a drawer. I have always wondered about that stack of papers that he wrote in response to his son's death that was so powerful, so tender to him, that he put it in a drawer and left it for decades. And I started to wonder about that room in his house, where it lay. Did he ever go in that room? Or was even that too painful for a father who'd lost his son? I started to think about the drawer itself holding this, essentially this holy document that this man had created. And the more I started trying to give voice to that place that held this score, I thought, well, is it just a place, or is it the divine? Is it the holy in general that holds our worst moments, that is this refuge for our brokenness of spirit? Bring your heart here, all secrets beyond words, your broken dreams, heavier than the strongest hands can hold. Bring them, lay them here. When the dams of the earth burst with tears, bring me the rush of all these rivers, all you lost, all you love. Here in this holy dark, I will braid them all to still water. Bring your heart here. The more I think of that, it really is my image of however we conceive of the divine, calling to us as creatures, as created beings in our brokenness, the divine being that place of refuge, of rest, of repair, of healing.
This is the one where the music came to me the most quickly. The bulk of this piece I wrote in one day.
Oh my gosh.
I read this poem and sat down at the piano, and I just immediately heard that opening melody, and I figured, I'll just start with the first phrase. And then I was still sitting down at the piano, and I wrote a little more, and I felt, no, I hear the next phrase now. And I just kept going. And it just drew the music right out of me. And that's such a special moment whenever you find a poem like that, or are gifted with a poem like that as a composer. This comfort that is being spoken of in this third poem here. Musically, I hope that it feels very warm, and it feels very comforting and gentle, in the sense of it being about spirit. When people pray, it's something that they're repeating to themselves, not only to ask for help, to ask for hope, but it's something that they're repeating to themselves so that they can give themselves comfort. So I think having this line being this melody being repeated several times, it's steady and it's consistent and it's comforting. But when we get to the second stanza, when the dams of the earth burst with tears, when we finally get to this line, I just let the choir open up. We also have some of the most heart-wrenching harmonies that we have there. We open up to this big diminished 7 chord on tears, that I think it's the widest range that I have between the lowest note and the highest note at this point. We all have these moments in our lives where we can't keep the feelings inside anymore. Our heart is sort of just bursting with whatever we're struggling with at that moment. And I think that's sort of what this is like in this point of the song.
So fascinating to hear others talk about your work, and because it just occurs to me that really this is a prayer spoken by the divine to us. And it didn't occur to me that might be what I was writing at the time. But that is, I think, what it has become. It's a reverse prayer.
These pieces are so special for the people who are getting to sing them.
As a composer, we sit here with our keyboards and our staff paper, And of course I can hear it in my head, but the moment that you finally get to hear real people bring something to life like that, it's always so special.
As we're recording this today, I haven't heard the pieces yet. I'm going to be surprised along with everyone else the first time I hear it. And I'm very confident I'll be pleased. And the early reports that Janaea and some of my spies in the choir, Janaea, have been saying that, yeah, this is working out. This is a good thing. So I'm very confident that what Hans has written is going to be a joy.
If you're interested in hearing these pieces in performance, we go on a regional tour. Friday, February 28th, we'll be at the Center for Faith and Life at Luther College, a 7:30 concert. The next day we'll be in St. Cloud, and we'll be giving a concert there at the fantastic cathedral downtown that evening. And then on Sunday, we'll be at the chapel on the University of St. Thomas campus for an afternoon concert, and would love to have you be able to join us in celebrating these fantastic 3 pieces of healing by Hans Bridger Heruth and Brian Newhouse.